Welcome back, fellow Spy fans. It's your boy Dave and Todd here.
Hello.
Uh, I am super hyped for talking about this show. I think last week we were really intrigued, but now I'm completely sold on this show.
What
I
are we
mean,
talking about?
we're talking about the IPCRESS File TV show starring Joe Cole. And it's a 6-episode mini-series based on the IPCRESS File film with quite a few changes, actually. But tonight we're talking about episode 2. If you haven't been able to watch, it's currently available on ITV, but that is for England viewers. So,
American audiences, you might have to jump through a few hoops if you want to get on board with this, but I do recommend it.
Highly recommend it. I'm super hyped for it. This episode really hooks you. You get quite a bit of like on the edge of your seat tensions.
I like it. I like the building of tension in this show.
Right? And they've set up quite a mystery. And we're kind of getting a lot of we're watching from the difference from the film is Palmer isn't already in intelligence. He gets recruited out of prison, and that's kind of like the carrot they're dangling out in front of him is, you help your nation and you might go free. Maybe you won't, but maybe you will. But I can't make any promises. So we're watching.
Well, at least you get to stay out of jail for another couple weeks.
Yeah, right. And we get we get to watch him learn. You know what I mean? And like kind of find out that he's kind of a natural prodigy for the trade, so to speak. Meanwhile, we get to see Jean being like just amazing as an actress who's playing the character, as well as like kind of her experience in the trade as well. So I'm fucking sold.
All right, cool. Listen, man, the very first thing that I was most excited about, because I have gone ahead and watched the entire series. You're watching it episode by week by week. The thing that is in the second episode that I was most excited about getting your reaction for is these intro credits / recap. Let me just get your raw reactions because I want to dive into this.
Oh, I love it because they're not like in chronological order from the previous episode, but they give you little tidbits because they didn't do this in the first episode. And it was interesting because, first of all, the whole show is very styled like old school cinema. It almost looks like they actually use Technicolor, and it has that very soft, glowy, sparkly look that like old film had that was using Technicolor, and probably from the camera. That's just very soft look. That's almost blurry, but it's not really blurry. You know what I mean? But the opening credits has that very similar like style where they just have blocks of images like floating around, but they're actually like video, which is like a lot easier to do these days. And it gives you like kind of a mini recap of the previous episode. So I liked it a lot.
Yeah. So what they do here, and here I wanna give my little essay on the graphic design of this show. What they do is they combine the intro credits with a recap. And the recap, and I'm supposedly talking to people that have seen the show, like it's done in these like stunning primary color kind of cutout shots. Like as a graphic designer, I'm just like, I'm sorry, I'm not a graphic designer, but I'm a person with a degree, at least a little degree in graphic design. Like it just totally makes me cream my jeans. It's not exactly Cowboy Bebop, but it does, which is its own animal, but it has this really great style. Like you've seen shows do recaps before, and they just basically parade out a series of scenes. But in this one, they're not just doing that. They're narrowing in and focusing in on characters and able to show reactions to what's being said in a different frame that might not have been exactly the way it was shown in the previous episode, but expresses more about like what's going on, and to get that done while the credits are being done, and also like really bringing us into the 60s. Like that's
Yeah.
another thing I like about it. I want to talk about like, okay, so what I'm talking about here is the graphic design of the packaging of the show. It's not, I want to talk later. I want to wait until another episode to talk about the directing, which I think is fantastic, and some of the themes. But right now, when you go to ITV's website and look at the landing page of the show, it's immediately telling you like we're gonna do 60s style. I think it
Yeah.
was like a brown, white, orange kind of composition. They use what I think is the original film's logo font for the IPCRESS file, which is a bold choice.
Uh-huh.
Again, like really cementing it to the 60s and to the source material. And I know I'm off on a rant here, but I will land this plane. Okay, when I first I did my due diligence. I did my honest thing. I actually subscribed to ITV. Yeah, I had to jump a little hoops to like try to pretend I was in the UK. But I watched the first episode with ads, and by the way, horrid experience. Oh my god. There are so many ads, and they're all for things that I actually can't buy because they're all like English products. Like it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of cool to see like, another country's commercials,
Uh-huh.
but like when you're watching basically like their version of a Geico commercial,
Uh-huh.
but it's not for Geico, it's for whatever the fuck they have over there. And it's not even anything you could buy if you wanted to.
Uh-huh.
Very annoying. But the
Mhm.
reason I bring this up is because okay, so now I'm watching ad free, and that's what you and I just saw. And something I noticed and I loved is that at the places where the commercial breaks would be, they still put up the IPCRESS file like a splash screen with the logo of the show, and I
Mhm.
think it's very effective. Um, a lot of these,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Like it's got like the old feel to it, but you're getting a lot of crisp video footage that they wouldn't have otherwise been able, because back when they did those, like, where there's like a picture sliding across the screen, it was just a picture, but we're actually getting like quick recap moments of the previous episode.
right. So for you and me, I think like the comparison to me of what's going on here is like to look at like Star Trek: The Next Generation, and apologize for people that have no give a fuck about that show. Um, but you know how like when you watch Star Trek: The Next Generation on like Netflix or whatever streaming service, like you can still see where the commercial, you're not getting to see the commercials, but you can definitely tell where the commercials would have been,
Right.
right? Music swells and then split second later, like there's some calming music and an establishing shot, and like we're back into it. Like they don't they didn't go back. Of course, streaming didn't exist when they first filmed that stuff, so they didn't go back and try to make it seem like seamless.
Uh-huh.
Like you can tell where the commercials are missing from, right?
Right.
Now
Absolutely.
in this show, I think, and now with like a streaming awareness, they could have made that choice. They could have made that seamless, but instead they chose to put up, like tension builds, and then boom, you get this black screen, splash screen, the IPCRESS file. You get suddenly reminded what it is you're watching, and all of this, and in most cases, you realize like at that moment you were holding your breath, and
Uh-huh.
and now you're like, oh, I can let it out. So just the packaging of the show, I had to go off on that rant. Let's talk about the story itself. Can I get in there real quick before we get too far started? We do like to uh, point out repeat performances of
Uh-huh.
actors from previous spy movies that we've covered. We've got one here. Well, we've already mentioned Tom Hollander,
Hmm.
who was quite a different performance in The Night Manager, but we got a new one here. Who's that?
Oh, well, he was in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I believe he was Soldier.
Mm, try again. Oh my god.
No.
You got the movie right.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about Stock. I'm talking about Colonel Stock, the KGB guy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew he looked familiar. And I also like, dude, what a great fucking Russian this guy plays. This guy is such a good KGB actor in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Such great
Um,
lines. I love
but
the
yeah,
line with the gun in the funeral. That was hilarious.
yeah. But yeah, he was in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the Gary Oldman film version. But no, he was not. Or oh wait, maybe I have it wrong. But take another guess.
I think it was Soldier, but maybe I'm misremembering.
Was Soldier Toby?
Oh, was he?
Uh,
Yes, I think because he was Toby in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
So you're
I'm
right.
pretty sure it was Soldier. I might
You're
be
right.
wrong.
I'm wrong.
Anybody
I
listening, if I'm wrong, go ahead and yell at us
he
on
was
social media.
definitely Toby. He was
Yeah,
definitely Toby though.
yeah.
All right, let's hand it off to you. What kind of notes you got on this episode?
Well, last episode I discussed because it ends with him stealing the cup from the scientist he was supposed to pick up that was drinking the tea. And we open with that cup. So we get that answered where and I was right. He brought it back to prove that he was there. And that way they could determine if the guy was the actual scientist. And it turns out the fingerprints didn't match. So it couldn't have been him. So they used a double to try and, like, I guess, what you call it as a red hair or covering their tracks so that they'd be like, oh, he's dead, so we're just going to give up on this. So I really liked that the trade off ended with like this big flare up. They weren't really there to kill him, is what he said, which is why he was able to get away from like what 6 people with machine guns. And the idea was he would come back and be like, yeah, he was killed, but he ended up he's light with his fingers. And he does this in this episode when he gets like he forces that fight on the bus and he kind of like steals something. I guess we won't find out what it was he stole till coming episodes, but it's something he's good at. Like in episode 1, when he convinced the cop to punch him out so that he could hide his key. He's
Mm-hmm.
really good at this diverting tactic, and it's just another thing on the list of what makes him like a natural at this like intelligence game. So I really like that.
Can I point out a shot that I'm not sure if it's just me, but it might be intentional. There's a scene where Harry and Jean are going through the missing scientist's apartment,
Mhm,
and Harry finds a card for basically like a psychiatrist kind of guy who's going
mhm.
to become important later, although he won't survive the episode, as we'll talk about. Um, there was something about the way he like uh, uh took the card, like it almost felt like sleight of hand, like it,
Uh-huh,
he looked at it and then he kind of just twisted his hand and it just kind of disappeared.
uh-huh.
That I Did you catch that? I don't
Yeah,
know,
he
I like,
hid it from Gene. He
right.
kind of just had like so he's already kind of learning that just kind of keep the info close type of thing. It looked like he was hiding it from her, and then it comes out later during the interrogation of that one guy that I'm not exactly sure who he is. But they were
Oh, the
interrogating.
interrogation of the fellow scientist.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. They have the first interrogation. They feel like he's hiding something, and then later they reinterrogate him after he's been arrested, and he pulls out that card, and that's the link to I guess opening the rabbit hole of the IPCRESS file. because it's to another scientist, who I guess they were buying drugs from or something, right?
Yeah. Drugs were involved in that exchange. I guess it comes out that okay. So who's our shady guy again? What's his name? Um, Dawson.
Uh-huh.
Dawson is the guy that's abducted the scientist in this situation, and it looks
Mhm.
like in this case he's acting as like a kind of a free agent,
Right.
although Tom Hollander's character Major Dalby, during his analysis of what he's seeing, he imagines that Dawson was hired by a certain party unknown to
Hmm.
abduct the scientist in order to keep their hands clean. But now Dawson is playing like a bid it up. I've got the scientist kind of thing, and now maybe making oh, what do you call it? Like social, like kind of uh approach it, not approaches, but invitations. There's a word for it. It's escaping me. He's being open to the idea that the Soviets could outbid whoever else it was that initially hired him. I'm not sure that really works for me because I can't figure out who that third party could have been. It seems to me like most, I don't know. I mean, if the Soviets hired him in the first place, then why does he have to play like footsie with uh, Colonel Croc? Uh, Grok, what's his name? I don't know.
Are we talking about?
Stock.
Oh, yeah, Colonel.
Yeah. So I don't know who this third agency would have been, but that's all. That's what I got with that. Like I don't know who that third agency might have been, but currently, damn it, his name Dawson is playing footsie with Stock.
Okay.
And how do we find out about that?
Um, is Dawson's the one that had the Scottish accent, or is he the one that tried to bomb? Oh, that's
It's
right.
it's
They've
both. It's both, but he
yeah,
has an English accent up until the end, and then his
yeah.
accent turns Scottish. Very
Total
interesting.
total plus spy points. I don't know which accent is his real one, and the
I
fact that he's
know.
switching them up is great.
I love that.
Um, but we found out that they were kind of in bed together because they recruited, and actually, I really want to talk about this. They recruited Stock's girlfriend, who and Stock's in Moscow, but she's like dating him and thinks like they're serious, but he's got like a wife and kids in Moscow, and so they like recruit her to kind of set up like bugs and like kind of let them know when people are coming, and that's how we find out because Dawson shows up to talk with him, and I'm not sure, is that supposed to be his double? Because Stock later at the funeral. Well, anyway, there's a funeral later with the girlfriend, and Stock says, "Oh, I guess my double wasn't good enough." So I'm not sure if the meeting with Dawson was the double, or if I don't know. That was some
I
like
think I
heavy.
I think I think I know that one,
Uh-huh.
or I think I've figured it out on the second watch. It's definitely Stock that meets with Dawson to
Okay.
talk very very surreptitiously, and we need to circle back on this. Like they're talking about like they're talking double talk. They're
Uh-huh.
talking about soccer players, but
Okay.
they're really having a conversation about negotiating the sale of a scientist,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it
Now,
was really cool because it starts out and they're like listening in, and I think Palmer thinks that like they're actually talking about soccer, but it becomes very clear that they're talking in code, and they're like discussing numbers and players, and I thought that was fun. I enjoyed that
so
because
as far as the double goes, remember that then like there's a meeting with Dalby and all his agents where they describe like, okay, we saw Stock take this train to blah blah blah, and then this flight to Amsterdam, and then that flight to uh, another place where someone using Stock's known London alias boarded a train for, or boarded a plane for Moscow. So
Oh.
I think what happened was, like, yeah, Stock made it look like he went back to Moscow, but he didn't,
Oh,
right?
oh,
Because
oh! So
there's
he's just mentioning that that was his double, pretending that it was his double, but it was actually him, type of thing.
right, but he actually stayed in London,
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, his double was on the plane and not him.
right?
Oh, so that he could have the meeting with Dawson. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Okay, good catch on that because that was a little confusing for me. Um, but I did want to talk about developing the girlfriend as an asset. Number one, just plus by points, finding someone close to him to like recruit and get information on. And they used the information that he had a wife and stuff to kind of convince like, oh, that bastard, we need your help. He's working for the KGB. Like, please help us. But it turns out she's pregnant, and this is like really messing with her, and she just got like the bomb dropped on her. So I really liked how, because we don't get this a lot in the in spy content, like, well, those kind of give us like a moment where like an asset is uncomfortable or scared, but it's usually like really quick, and then they get killed or something or
Right.
whatever. Yeah, but this, like, they really gave you like a really believable reason, like, here she is. She's just been told that her like boyfriend that she thought was serious that might turn into marriage is like basically she's the mistress. He's married with kids. And number two, like, he's a KGB agent. And on top of that, like, now she's pregnant and now she's being asked to do all this like shady shit that she's not used to. This isn't her like life, So it really dwells on her. And so watching Jean try to manage her, she's trying to be empathetic, but like she doesn't, like, they really developed her character of being this. She makes the comment about people didn't like her in school because she was kind of stuck up. She was kind of like that perfect student, type of thing, and so she quite doesn't, like, you can tell she feels terrible, or like wants to reach out, but she doesn't really quite have the I guess social skills to kind of like connect with this woman, but she really wants to. So she just kind of gives her like, just wait until the morning and I'll call you. While this woman's like freaking the fuck out and can't talk right now. I really like that we got to see this, and it was like well done. You know what I mean? Like it was very real, and I really wanted to point that out. So plus by movie points on that.
Right. Yeah, I have two thoughts on that. First of all, is, I mean, they could have done this operation without involving the girlfriend, conceivably.
Right.
We've seen it done before. You just wait until, I don't know, they're out of the house and then put it in the bugs. Or maybe you have like 24/7 surveillance. But
Right.
in this case, they see the opportunity to limit the budget of their surveillance by only, having to like turn on their ears when she has flipped the switch.
Hmm.
And then how does that work? Well, you look at their relationship, and there's no way they would have approached her unless they had dirt on Stock that, I mean, they wouldn't have just like, if they had looked at their relationship and found that it was totally clean, they wouldn't have had the opening to
Uh,
go in. But that's the first thing they do. They establish the fact that your boyfriend is not who he says he is.
right.
Um, you're being lied to. You need to get on our side.
Right.
If they hadn't had that leverage, then I think they would have played it a different way. So
That's
uh,
true.
props for that. Uh, my only other second note, I mean, I do want to let Jean off the hook. The girlfriend, all you had to do was, I mean, I told you, just go back and just wait till tomorrow morning and we'll deal with this.
Right.
She could have done that. But maybe they underestimated her panic, you
Right.
know, about the situation. Um, what else you got?
Well, one thing I did want to say about the Switch, the budget of having human surveillance on all the time might be a big factor, but I think it might be so that they can't pick up the bugs, because once it's powered on, they could probably like sweep for them, but this way it's not on. That's kind of what I gathered about the Switch, like why the Switch was needed.
Yeah, I like that thought. I'm also trying to think like, okay, this is 1965. The whole conversation about fake conversation about it being about soccer interested me because in demonstrations of spycraft in media in later years, and I'm going to go straight to the Americans here, like all you had to do was turn on a faucet and you knew that
Oh yeah.
or just play a little classical music in the background. It feels to me like at this point in time in 1965, maybe they hadn't figured out that trick, that
Right.
very, very simple trick.
Right.
Um, and also, it occurs to me that now in the modern era, I think with pulling this out of my ass, but I honestly believe that with computer analysis, that kind of shit wouldn't work anymore.
Right. Right.
I think that, you could just put the computer on it and, even if someone was like drawing water or playing music in the background, I think that you could trust a computer to pull out and analyze like what the conversation actually was. So it makes me kind of interested of like what was the beginning and the end of the era of we can just turn on a faucet and talk in confidence.
Right. Well, they obviously understood the possibility of being bugged because they're talking in code within a private quarters. So they like, especially if the Colonel Stock is a KGB agent, he probably knows that they bug people, so they probably have already had it part of protocol to speak in this code. Um, so you're right. Like, there's this trick that I guess maybe they didn't figure out back then, but like they obviously were aware of the capacity for them being tapped.
Right, right. But then me as stock, if I'm putting myself in stock's position, like I think this conversation needs to take place in a random location where there's no possibility that bugging could have happened.
Right.
You know, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. A really good point.
All right. Yeah, just meet somewhere that you've never met before, and that way the enemy has no way of having prepared the area
Yeah.
uh, at all.
Yeah. Um, what else? I did want to talk about a couple callbacks that I thought were nice. The Alice sets up Gene and Palmer in like a house. I'm still not sure whose house it is, but he starts cooking for her and playing music and drinking sherry and stuff. And I thought that was nice. It wasn't the exact type of situation, but it was similar enough to where I'm pretty sure they put this in for like the IPCRESS file, like fan base or whatever. That, oh, here's something different, but it's like a callback. And then there was another one where they raid the house and it's empty.
Oh, now are we talking about the end of the episode?
No, 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 no. Remember, well, first he gets like an inkling that he might have found a spot,
Oh,
and then
right, right.
it's a dead end. But actually, the audience is told that he was on the right trail. Then they raid the scientist's house, and everybody's gone, and the scientist is dead. So like that, all those shots are like pretty much like carbon copy, like callbacks to the original film, which I liked.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely yeah, it's got those it's hitting those beats
Yeah,
that the movie did, but in different and surprising ways. Like the false flag operation that but I don't know. I really like how Dolby I thought I really think this show is better than the movie, or at least for me. Um,
Yeah.
I enjoyed the movie. I'm having fun watching the show,
Oh yeah.
and
Me too.
there is the point in the movie where Harry calls in the raid on the warehouse, and that never really super felt right to me. But in the end, Dalby was like, hey, Harry apologizes. Dalby, I got this one wrong. Dalby's like, hey, it happens, let's go to lunch.
Yeah.
But in this one with Dalby as Tom Hollander, I think he's even better at saying, like, listen, um I really I don't want you to think of this as a failure. I want you to, like, I don't want you to think of this as so much of a failure that you refuse to trust your instincts in the future. You
Uh,
should still let me know, like, when your spider senses are tingling.
yeah, and that's like one of the major differences of that kind of situation. That's sort of a callback. Like it previously Dalby was the bad guy traitor, right? And he's like giving him shit, even though they found like a clue at the warehouse. And that kind of was like a little foreshadowing of him being the traitor. But in this, I feel like I'm not really sure that Dalby's the bad guy. I went in thinking automatically he was, and I'm not quite sure, especially with how much the show has changed from the film. Um,
Right. So I need to mention, like, going into this, like, we made a promise which we're now about to break. Our promise was that if you listen to our episodes about the TV show before you watch the movie, like, you wouldn't get necessarily a huge spoiler thing. But we're gonna take the leash off of ourselves on that. In that in the movie, Dalby is the traitor.
yeah,
But it's what I want to nominate and call a duck duck goose situation. You know the game Duck Duck Goose?
yeah,
Do you can do you understand what I'm trying to convey when I say this is a Duck Duck Goose situation with Dalby being the traitor in the movie? What I'm
uh,
trying to say is it just comes out of fucking left field.
okay.
It's completely random.
Oh, okay, right, right,
It
right,
just
right,
goes duck 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 goose. Like, there's no setup. There's
right,
no there's it just happens.
right.
And I can promise you that although there might be some interesting stuff going on with Dalby later in the series, it's not going to be that. So I'm okay looking at Dalby right now, having seen the movie, knowing that he turns out to be the traitor at the end of the movie. I'm okay with talking about what he's doing right here in this TV show. And he does, I don't know, from all appearances. Well, okay, there's this though. He was okay. Harry comes up with the idea of where Dawson's house might be. He calls Jean. They call Dalby. They show up. Guess what? Dawson's not there, but also
Uh,
his like housekeeper or landlord, whoever
uh,
it was, like, immediately reports back to him. So they were ready.
yeah,
And that if you were trying to overthink it, that might put some shade on Dalby
yeah,
or even on Jean, you know,
right, yeah,
because we're certainly not expected at this moment to think that, like, Harry's the traitor. Like, how
right.
would that make sense? Um, but they're also going to show up, with all the police cars at the psychiatrist's house where they were holding the scientist. Again, it looks like someone tipped them off. Could it have been Dalby? Could it have been Jean? At this point, we don't know. The only person I don't suspect at this point is Harry.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, and we still actually have the entire CIA. Like, we don't know who's involved over there. Um, and that's what I also really liked about the show is the CIA is not just randomly in the story. Like every touch point we get with them makes sense. And so we don't get a whole lot of interaction with them, but when we do, it all makes sense. And you can't rule out anybody on that entire, I don't know, theater of the intelligence work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, I will criticize Gene's cover story at the BBC as being bad tradecraft in that just her boyfriend showing up randomly and saying like, "Hey, I just came by to see Gene," and
Mhm.
like the response is like, "No one's ever heard of her." That
Yeah,
could
right.
right. You could you should set up your cover better. Like and this is something I'm excited to talk about in a later episode of the Spies Like Us podcast is Jean's story I think evolves very nicely of like her life work balance
Mhm.
as being a spy, and especially as a woman in a man's world. That's something I want to talk about in more detail later, but for right now I just want to say like like your cover doesn't just need to be good enough to fool your enemies, it
Uh-huh.
needs to be good enough to fool your friends.
Right. Yeah.
And this is an easy fuck up, right?
Right.
Like if I'm telling my boyfriend that I work at the BBC and my boyfriend shows up at the BBC and says, "Hey, I want to see Jean," and their response is like, "Never heard of her." Fuck, you know?
Right.
Uh you could do a little bit of due diligence there, I think.
Absolutely. Um, well, I actually wanted to touch on this just because when we did La Femme Nikita, this was a theme
Oh,
addressed.
such a great example because that is totally a move, totally a story about keeping your secret cover from the people you love. Please continue.
Yeah, there's that scene that I love and I'll talk about for the rest of my life where she's like asked to like snipe out some politician or some shit. And her fiance is in the other room of the hotel and he's like begging to like her to talk to him because he's like, "You're upset and I care about you and I want to know what's up." And she has to keep the secret. Here she is like getting orders to kill someone, crying her eyes out that she can't be like, the girlfriend or wife or whatever to her man that she's like obviously in love with. It's a powerful scene, and I wanted to point that out because here Jean is like got this fiance who has no idea what she does. She's working late constantly. And, a guy gets suspicious. And so now he's like kind of like threatening her because he thinks that she's cheating on him. He grabs her by the arm and he's like, "If I found out that you were seeing someone else, I would never forgive you," or some shit. And she's like, "You're hurting me." And it's like, she's like stuck, like you said, the time wise, she's living in a man's world. So there's already that, especially like the intelligence field. And then number two, here she is with this fiance who's pretty much dedicated to her, and he's starting to get suspicious and like is wondering what the fuck is going on. And she has to keep her cover. She can't tell him, "Hey, by the way, I'm a spy." You know what I mean? Like, and it's you're getting these little moments where there's like an implication that something might happen between her and Palmer. So as an audience, you're getting torn between all of these different emotions, and I really like how much stress they really put on Jean and how much that character is able to personally manage the stress. But she's always put in these situations that she has to like get out of that, by keeping a cover, maintaining intelligence, protecting national security. I really like that. So I'm glad you brought up like her life and work balance as like an intelligence agent.
I mean, I think, and again, like I said, like there's gonna be later episodes where I think this is explored in more detail, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna bring it up again. But for right now, I'll just say, like, when Dolby is at home with his wife and he gets a phone call that says like, "Oh, I have to go work late tonight," you
Yeah.
know, that's normal.
Right.
When she has to go and work late, it's like, what the fuck?
Right. Yeah. Like, like the double standard. 'Cause, when I think
It's total double standard. Yeah. And
yeah, and that,
I think it's gonna get highlighted in later episodes in a really nice way.
well, in episode one, when he gives her the like Chanel necklace or whatever, he's like talking about marriage and their future, and oh, by the way, babe, I'm about to make like a fuckload of money. You'll never have to work again. And she's like, well, what if I want to work? Like he's like totally like got like his whole life mapped out, and he's just kind of seeing her as like, you're the fiance, the wife of a very powerful and up and coming star man that's going to make a load of money, when she has her own life and intelligence, that where she's capable and very like respected by her peers. You know what I mean? Like I like the dynamic, and you were saying how much you enjoy the show more than the film, and I'm definitely on board with you, because the film, even though it was fun, especially with all the like British quips back and forth, like the show feels like there's a lot more investment in building the story and developing the characters, and like I feel very attached to all of these characters. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And her name is Lucy Boynton. I
Oh,
haven't seen her in anything else. She makes me a believer in blondes. Um,
yeah.
I'm I'm not, I'm not a big fan of blondes. Just my personal taste. This is a blonde that just like sells it so good. I I think the production design. There's also like, we talked about how many times like it looks like an actual 1960s film.
Yeah,
It's especially when there's just a one shot on her that I'm like, oh my god, this absolutely transports me
yeah.
uh back to the 60s. She's just
Absolutely,
she's magnetic. I, I
absolutely.
I like her so much, and I think like, you know, um, you could you could take different stories and say like, okay, well, you know, it's 80 years later. We're gonna throw a bone to the women. We're gonna throw a bone to the black people. We're gonna throw a bone to the Puerto Ricans. This doesn't feel like that in her
Right.
case. She
Mhm.
is honestly like second build for a fucking reason.
Yeah.
um it's this is not just a show about Harry. This is a show about Harry and Jean. There is, the black CIA guy has raised more than a few eyebrows um amongst the cinematic elite, in that, like there's no fucking way there was a black CIA agent in 1965.
Well,
I'm
there was the
sorry.
one in the film. And well, actually, I have a theory that that whole narrative of like no blacks, no Jews, no Catholics, whatever. I have a sneaky feeling that that's just like a narrative put out there to create like some sort of uh what would you call that, like distance between actual agents or something, because if if I was in charge, I would use everybody and anybody. And I'm wondering if they might have put that out there to like make it like so no one would ever suspect someone like that. But I mean, considering our history, it's possible that they really did have that policy. Um, but the IPCRESS File film had the black CIA agent guy.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. And I like that they had the agent in this one um, be more involved, because the CIA shouldn't have, like there was no reason for them to be in the film, but now we're like actually getting reasons for them being part of the story. And we've already had like the CIA agent that like we're watching like demonstrate that he's like very capable. Like in the first episode, you don't know he. he tells Jean when he first meets her, sorry, I'm really hungover. I got really trashed last night. Then like some guy invites him to go drink and he tells him I don't drink. So like, was he lying about never drinking or was he lying about the hangover? You know what I mean? And
Mm.
and so like he's very capable of like kind of like walking the line, you know what I mean? And I'm really excited for the coming episodes. Just to see like how everybody like participates in the story.
Yeah. And believe me, Paul Maddox, the CIA agent that we're talking about,
Oh,
he's gonna have some twists and some turns.
oh hell yeah.
It's gonna get really good
Yeah.
on that aspect. My final note before I want to sign off, and then talk about anything you want. I thought the end of this episode where the music is swelling and Harry is finding like basically like the empty IPCRESS file movie canister,
Uh-huh.
and all this setup, like it's so good. It just I mean, I just like I was like, "Oh my god, give me everything else you have." At that point, the way this episode swells to its ending, and I kind of wonder like if this was, I mean, for me it's very effective because I've seen the movie. So
Uh-huh.
I kind of know where this goes, but I also there's been enough changes in the story where I also kind of don't. So I'm in this
Right.
really fun kind of uncertainty. But like this way of like teasing mind control, which is going to become a factor in the story, just like it is in the movie and in the book, was highly effective to me. I like all the hairs on my forearms were like standing up. I don't know if it would have been as effective for someone that hasn't seen the movie, that doesn't know what they're teasing, but I kind of suspect it might be.
Yeah. I felt the exact same way. Like I told you as soon as we just watched it, I want to watch the next episode. Like I just want to binge the whole thing right now, but I think I'm just going to watch episode 3 tonight and just to like kind of wet my palate and get some notes down and then watch it again before we record again.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get out of here. Let's go watch episode 3.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, if you guys haven't listened to our analysis of episode 1 yet, go back and watch that. You can find it on spieslikeus.net or just search Spies Like Us podcast on any podcast app that you use. And definitely shoot us a line. You can shoot us an email from the website or tweet us at spies_like_us or drop us a comment on spieslikeus.com facebook.com/spieslikeus. And we'll see you next week.
The preceding transmission sampled the song Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net.